Hello there, welcome back to Marcelian&Flame, and did you know that we just had an interview or WoWcast with Ion Hazzikostas where we've got hints that WoW will massively change in the future in a way that we've been calling for years and will probably make a lot of people happy and maybe some people upset, and that is add-ons being hammered down. Which add-ons are going to die and probably be banned? Which add-ons are going to still remain usable in the future? And how will WoW look for new players and existing players as well in an expansion or two time? This comes off just of the recent interview with Max and Dreadnought talking about with Ian. I want to call it an interview, but it's not really an interview. It's a WoWcast. It was a discussion. It was kind of like a podcast rather, where they talked about a lot of the add-ons and a couple of big things that you will want to know. The first one will be the Rotational Assist changes that are coming in 11.1.7. This comes in two shapes that we know so far. When it will be tested on the PTR, we will see what the final result will be once the patch is live. First of all, on your action bars, the button that ideally you should be pressing next as you're doing damage or playing your rotation in the game will be highlighted by a little glowy thing, and you can essentially just click on the glowy button and not have to think too much about your rotation as well. And the second change for this will be the one button rotation ability, kind of like what the Hekili add-on has done over the years, where you'll essentially be pressing only one button and that button will be ideally the spell that would be best used in that scenario. There are a couple of things to point out here. This will not be the most optimal way to play your class because that's still about player skill and understanding of the class. This will be especially for people who don't really care about performing. People who probably don't play Mythic Plus, they probably don't normal or heroic raid, they just want to quest, they just want to collect mounts, they just want to do pet battles and delves and things like that and not have to worry about reading a guide about their class, which is totally fair. WoW has become pretty complex, and for new players that want to play the game, it can be quite daunting to get into it and essentially understand what is going on and what they have to do to essentially perform. Insofar as we've known, and Max and Dreadnought have asked Ion Hazzikostas this, there will be some coding and theory crafting going around to figure out exactly what the correct rotation is so that the devs don't just tell you to press the wrong buttons, because this will be coded inside the game and the game will calculate what the best ability to be used is. There will be ways to figure out if you're in AoE or in single target, whether or not you use a single target ability or an AoE ability. These questions have been asked. There's plenty way more on the table where for them to figure out while they're implementing this. It's likely the first iteration, once it's added into the game, will not be the perfect one, and they will be improved as the edit mode for the UI has been done in Dragonflight, and now it's actually really good. The second and probably the biggest discussion was around WeakAuras, and I'm not gonna go into all of the points there. I actually strongly recommend you check the WoWcast out for yourself. The link will be in the description, and give a like and listen to all of the talking points that they went through. What I want to focus on is on the fact that WeakAuras will be obsolete. Now, I'm saying this a little bit to be dramatic, but also to kind of summarize the idea, because it's not going to happen overnight. It is ideally the plan, and the plan can also change. It is to nobody's surprise and maybe to nobody's dislike, essentially, that WeakAuras are particularly a problem for the game. First of all, because they automate the game a little bit too much, and it can become a little bit disconnected for the player to actually engage with a video game when you have to look on the screen, press the shiny color button that you have to press. I'm sure some people like it, that's perfectly fine. What's going to change is the game will adapt its mechanics so that WeakAuras are no longer as necessary. Now, I'm saying as necessary because people usually have a knee-jerk reaction. We've done a video on this back in Dragonflight where we've essentially said that add-ons should just go away, should just be deleted forever, right? And people, of course, went out of their freaking minds about this because they didn't appreciate the implication. I'm not throwing shade on anybody here, but the implication was that if we end up in a world where there will be no more WeakAuras, the fights themselves will also be simpler. You cannot have the same level of complexity in the game right now with no WeakAuras. This is just crazy. And Ion essentially said this almost word for word in the WoWcast yesterday or the 2 days ago, depending on when you watch this video. So if we're gonna get rid of WeakAuras, the game will also be simpler. Now, I will go over a couple of main topics that they discuss and how they simplify the game, but I want to mention this because Ion did feel like he had to say this, and I guess man just knows his community. they don't want to dumb down the game, because a lot of people are afraid of the game being dumbed down, we in particular as well, but that's not their intent and that's not their direction. What they want to do is for the game to feed you the information that you need in a more concise manner, where you don't feel like you need WeakAuras. That doesn't necessarily mean the game will be simpler, but the information that's giving you is going to be more precise, because that's what WeakAuras are actually doing. They're just giving you the information quicker than any other way you can, so that you can make a decision, whether it is to go and soak that swirly, whether it is to drop that bomb, whether it is that this mechanic is coming. All of that would be ideally baked into the game so that you can see. Now, there's also the question of like, is that still enough? Because the game is still particularly difficult at the high end, and it's a barrier of entry for a lot of people. And this goes down into the second design of changes, which we already have right now in Season 2, and that is clarifying the visuals and the audio visuals, or the audio effects, audio cues. In Season 2 in Mythic Plus, we've had the dungeons completely simplified compared to Season 1, where there are significantly fewer casts, fewer mechanics, clearer. Obviously, we all know the new circle animations that we have and the frontal animations that we have, way more clear to see, and it's going to keep on going in the next patches to come. There's also the audio cues that can be simplified as well. Obviously, we have WeakAuras that can bing in your ears, air horns, or say dodge, frontal, circle, dodge, soak, defensive, right? We have those. Some people use them, some people don't, but those will also be addressed, those types of mechanics addressed, so that you don't need those again. On top of just mechanics like dungeons and raids, they will look at simplifying some of the classes as well, because you also use WeakAuras for playing your spec and your class in general. One example that was used was Outlaw Rogue, because Outlaw Rogue is a famous spec that has a lot of buffs that it's juggling, and you need to know exactly what the state of your buffs is before you press your next ability, a lot of the times in your rotation, Roll the Bones being the main culprit here. Now, that's fun as a gameplay note, but only really fun because you can use WeakAuras. Since if you have to look at the top right corner of your screen, try to find the buff in all of those rows of buffs, like we talked about it in so many videos in the past. So this will be addressed as well, once again with this delineation of it will not be dumbed down, because that is not what they're looking for with the class design. The biggest benefit for us, the players, with these types of changes is that the devs will have access to a lot of other mechanics that they can put into the game that they cannot really do it right now, because WeakAuras, DBM, bigwigs, and all that just make it so incredibly trivial that there's no real point in just putting them into the game. Mechanics that normally cannot be put into the game because they have to make more complex mechanics instead, so that they can offer players a challenge. We can discuss of what a challenge is, but essentially if you went into a raid and you like raiding and you like Mythic Plus, if you just blindly go into a new boss and just smash it without any particular difficulty, you would eventually get bored. So there has to be a challenge. Now, if we're gonna be in a world without WeakAuras, what will that challenge be? So there can be a plethora of mechanics that maybe we've had over the years in past expansions, where they would be incredibly trivial now, but without WeakAuras, they can be a little bit more of a challenge. So the fact that they won't be restricted by the fact that people can actually automate their gameplay and responsibilities in encounters gives them way more options to actually design more and more diverse and cool fights. I do have a personal note to make on this, because I didn't really hear anybody on the WoWcast say this, and I do think this could be an actual problem that a lot of people are facing right now. When they talked about making the visuals more clear, the audio cues more clear, the information clearer on your screen as well, one thing that maybe they implied but they didn't specify out is that one of the biggest problems with WoW's endgame, and why it's hard for some people to get into, is that it's not necessarily hard to see all of the things that are happening, is that there's just way too many things happening. If you actually take a second and look at a mechanic, you can actually see the swirly on the ground, you can hear the sound effects, you can even hear the voice line of the NPC saying what the NPC will be doing, so that you essentially know that, oh my god, I just need to move from in front of the boss, because the boss is going to be doing one big cleave in front of him. The reason I think this is a problem, because just to kind of paint a picture of how the usual player plays World of Warcraft, your first thing that you're focusing on is your rotation. Your brain goes, okay, I need to do my rotation. The second thing is where you are positioned. Okay, I'm not gonna walk off the platform, I'm not gonna stand in the fire. So it's rotation, I am safe. rotation, I am safe. And then a mechanic happens with some circles. Then your brain will go, rotation, I am safe, circles, move out. Rotation, circles, move out. That's what your brain does. Now, when you add like a modern encounter, what your brain will likely end up doing is something like rotation, circle, move out. I am safe. Rotation, kick, circle. Rotation, kick, frontal, defensive. Rotation, kick, bloodlust, potion, dodge, fire, swirly, rotation, defensive. Like all of this stuff just ends up becoming a lot to pile on top of each other, while also keeping your complicated rotation in check, staying alive, using defensives, dodging frontals, interrupting, and paying attention to your surroundings as well. So once the game can be simplified a little bit, where things don't have to be reacted to in less than 2 seconds, then we can talk about not needing WeakAuras. Because if I have about 4 seconds to react to a swirly around me, once I'm done with my rotation, I'll eventually see, oh shit, there is a swirly under me. But when your brain is overloaded with 17 different actions that you have to do every 3 or 4 seconds, it doesn't have the space necessary to notice things. Have you ever played one dungeon where you're just going into your rotation and you're like dying and you didn't realize what happened because you actually stood in a circle that was right there, right in front of you, but you just couldn't see it? It's not that you're a bad player or that you're dumb or anything. It's just that your brain can only do and focus on so many things at once, and when it's overloaded, it starts filtering things out. There's a famous experiment that has been done by, I think, a college professor some years ago with a gorilla experiment, where the professor had a bunch of people wearing white and black shirts, I believe, and they were passing a ball between each other, and you had to count how many passes have been done by, I don't know, the white wearing people. And in that time, a gorilla was walking through the screen and nobody noticed the gorilla, because your brain has to focus on specific things in order to be efficient. This is the same reason as to why you don't see your nose in front of your face, because your brain filters out too much information that can overload it. Seeing your nose with your eyes while you're doing your things about in the world is not useful information for you to record, which is why you're not aware that you can actually see your nose when you open your eyes. And a big thing to keep in mind for everybody that's worried that they're gonna be losing their favorite add-ons, Ion has stated specifically that they don't want to touch the customizable UI add-ons at all. UIs that move your bars, LVY style UIs, bag add-ons, stuff like that, map add-ons, they will not be touched. Ideally, they don't want to have them suffer at all in their quest to optimize the UI, to give you better information, and to eliminate potential external add-ons that everybody has to download. So on that, at least their mentality is good, so we can be happy with that. All of these changes are going to make WoW a lot more new player friendly, where the accessibility is going to be addressed, so you cannot have a new player having to download 17 extra add-ons to be able to play the game. It's going to be way more alt friendly, and maybe most important, FPS friendly, because having a lot of add-ons, turns out it eats quite a little bit of your performance. So what do you think? What add-ons could you not live without whatsoever, and what add-ons would you be happy to see go? Let us know in the comment section down below, and check this video out where Marcelian and myself debate the meta classes Unholy and Balance, why they're meta and why damage isn't everything that they do. And if you think that's why and you get them into your low keys, you're going to actually suffer quite a bit.